If you missed last night's show, this was a portrait that was purchased by the Trump Foundation, and $20,000. Now, of course, the artist that sold it to the Trump Foundation, in order to get the $20,000, had to make a $25,000 contribution to the Donald Trump for President campaign. And what the hell's my finger doing there? What's this?
You're pointing?
No, I think Trump's remark was that somebody asked Trump. Somebody gave Trump a bunch of different portraits to choose from, and Trump said, "Take your pick.
Dig deep.
Dig deep. Take your pick." Now, before we go on to our list of P words that we did last night, I want to just quickly review the ones that we did last night. 5-letter P words relevant to the election: power, poxes, and if you want to know what the conversation was about these, you'll have to go watch last night's show. Piano, purge, polls, photo, phone.
Which led to a phone call.
It did, from Rush Limbaugh.
Wild.
From Rush Limbaugh. We had a call in from Rush Limbaugh. Phase, either people or maybe just the first 3 letters.
People.
Print. And again, you'll have to watch last night's show to see how we handle these words. These very important words. Pizza and point. Now, I thought that somewhere in the deck we had a word that Basil Budikat likes to use on occasion.
Well, these 5-letter P words, because Trump made one 5-letter P word very, very, very famous this election cycle.
He had an idea and he grabbed onto it.
He really did. And you know what? Mass media grabbed onto it as well.
Absolutely. That became a talking point and a discussion point for at least a week, it seemed like.
And so we thought, since there are so many better 5-letter P words, we started taking random 5-letter P words.
Okay.
And so we shuffle, we cut the deck, and the first one for this episode is payer.
Payer. Now, you sure there's an R missing out of that? Because this is a very religious country, apparently, or at least a lot of people claim to be religious, and some are and some aren't, quite frankly.
So you're saying that?
Prayer.
So what you're saying is you're praying that tomorrow, who wins? The American people.
Well, we know who wins because this is actually Thursday. But we're not going to tell you. If you missed it, you're going to have to go back and watch the 600,000 hours of debates and commentary and all the other baloney.
You can ask your peers.
Peers. Are those people? Are those our peers? Individuals who pee?
They're the ones who give you peer pressure. The pressure to take a long walk off of a short pier.
Oh, pier, P-I-E-R. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yes, just so that everyone gets the da-da-da.
Just to clarify that.
Peers.
Peers.
Pierce Brosnan. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So we're going to cut the deck.
We were doing some movie talk last night too.
There was some movie talk last night. And speaking of movies, see, the cards last night, they were hacked. The right words kept coming up at the right time, or the correct words kept coming up at the left time.
Yeah, phone came up right when the phone rang, and there it was, Rush Limbaugh, talking about how he had proof. See, what do I say? That he had proof that the Clintons had just snuffed Janet Reno, because obviously she had something. Well, I'm sure the day after she takes office, if there's still a Republican Congress in place, still a Republican House of Representatives, they'll be having Rush testify and delivering all the proof that the Clintons, amongst their 50-plus people that they've murdered, that Janet Reno fits very well into that theory.
Because Rush is short for Russian, which makes him the Russian hacker who stole all of John Podesta's emails. Now, back to proof just for a moment, because we were talking films. Proof, if you haven't seen great Australian film from the early 1990s, The first film that made, and I'm totally blanking on his name, the gentleman who was the agent in The Matrix, his first big film in Australia was a film, Proof, where he was blind.
Matrix, Keanu Reeves, that's all I remember from The Matrix.
So, Proof with a blind man, proof in this election, proof that something is phony.
Something extremely phony.
There's something very phony about these cards coming up in the correct order, even though they've been shuffled. Phony, the word that Holden Caulfield would use in The Catcher in the Rye, which takes us back to education.
Catcher in the Rye. I remember that book. And I remember it because when a fellow by the name of John Lennon was murdered in front of the Dakota, in front of his home on Central Park West and 72nd Street. And by the way, if you go there, you'll still see there's still a bit of blood on the sidewalk 30 years later, 35 years later. The gentleman that killed John Lennon, and I use the gentleman very loosely, David Chapman, Mark David Chapman, he said that if you want to know why I killed John Lennon, read Catcher in the Rye. Upon which, of course, a lot of people went out and got Catcher in the Rye and read it, and afterwards said, oh my God, I still have no idea why he killed John Lennon.
So you're saying that the man who killed John Lennon made a mint for J.D. Salinger.
He did.
Which is what allowed him to then become a recluse up in New Hampshire for decades and decades and decades.
I wonder if Chapman got a cut of that.
I bet he did.
Probably.
Holden Caulfield did not like phonies. That's why people don't want to vote for the two major parties in this election, because they find the two major candidates to be very, very phony.
70% of voters, when questioned over and over and over again, in poll after poll after poll, do you like Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? 70% said, nah.
And they don't care that it sounds petty, do they?
No. Hardly petty at all.
Tom Petty?
And the Heartbreakers.
And the Heartbreakers.
And Trump and Clinton apparently caused us all a lot of heartbreak.
I would agree.
Either way, a lot of heartbreak on November 8th.
Whether we wanted Bernie or whether we're more of a third party type, there has been much heartbreak in this election.
And there will be a third party going forward. And we'll get to that next week. Just a little heads up on that. Punch.
Where can you go with punch in this election?
Well, it's what Donald Trump wanted to do to about half the people that showed up at his rally. He would, well, I guess some of them he would probably pat in certain areas.
Yes. Yes.
Or grab in certain areas, or pat in certain areas. And there were ones that came along that didn't quite fit the what Trump would call a real Trumpster.
Ooh.
And let's cut to the chase and say that a lot of those folks that showed up at Trump's rallies that he didn't particularly like and would have liked to punch and encouraged his followers to punch were blacks.
Yes. So what we're saying.
Did I whisper that right?
You whispered that right, saying very much that Trump is a pacist. I'm trying to use a P word, but I can't. I mean, there's.
You got to give me a definition of that, pacist.
Pacist. Well, let's see. Let's go to a blank card.
Okay.
So see, there really is a P in it. See, P.
As in, is that similar to pacifist?
But yeah, well, yes, it's no. In fact, it's completely the. But that's not there. But see, it's still a P. So when you're this is sketching live on the air.
So if if people were to say that Donald Trump, he's such a pacist.
Yes, he is a pacist.
Then he wouldn't really understand that you were calling him a slightly different.
Well, what you'd be saying is you'd be calling him kind of pasty.
Pasty.
He likes his supporters kind of pasty.
Yeah.
If you're not pasty,
yeah,
you're really not a Trump supporter.
Okay. Onward.
So speaking of, one might say we're all pawns in this.
And who just got the Nobel Prize? An author through the vehicle of song.
Mr. Dylan.
Robert Zimmerman, Bob Dylan. Great song of his, Only a Pawn in Their Game. And it starts from the bottom up, and it describes everybody that was involved in Medgar Evers' death, his murder.
Oh, interesting.
And going right up all the way to the deputy sheriffs, the marshals, the governor, all those people, none of them are really responsible in the eyes of themselves for the murder of Medgar Evers, even the ones at the top that basically said that something or other should be murdered. So they're all pawns in the game, right on down to the guy that from the back of a bush fired the shot that took out the man, so there's a quick shout out to Robert Zimmerman, Bob Dylan. Now that he's finally acknowledged that he actually got a prize.
Very much so. And he says he'll be there to even get it.
Will he?
And he said he will. If he could be there. He might be there.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that acceptance speech. But as we are talking about...
How's his singing going these days?
If we're talking the opposite of this,
Yeah.
then the proper word has come up,
Peace.
which is this,
Yep.
which is what truly gets rid of
Yep.
that. And this, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
is the 5-letter P word that got no discussion during this election season, during this campaign season. And I would say...
Well, you had two people whose finger would potentially be going into the election, whose finger would be on the button to fire some pretty dastardly weapons. One who would do it because he got angry at somebody and said, screw them and blow up those bastards. And the other one would say, let me put this in front of a group of people. Let me go to my inner circle and let them say whether or not we should invade and blow up that country. And how is that going to benefit our military-industrial complex?
And that
who will pay me for getting them more business?
How will that war fill
their purse?
It's strange how it is the third and fourth parties who are the only candidates who were not on the debate stage and the only ones who would consider not going to war. If you want peace, if you truly want peace, there is only one candidate standing who touts that as a part of her platform.
You're willing to talk to people that you don't necessarily agree with, because while you're busy talking, you're less likely to be busy bombing.
Yes. And the libertarians, for their part, are about not continuing the imperialist actions, although they're not quite so far as saying peace. But I would say, and I have said, that the idea of Gary Johnson being president has a benefit because you cannot bomb a place you cannot find on a map.
I guess we call that pragmatic pacifism.
Yes, we do. And so for that, I'm okay with the fact that he didn't know where Aleppo is. And for all the times in my life I have said we need to teach more geography in schools, I apologize. Because in Gary Johnson's case, it saved Aleppo. It's stunning, really.
You can't find it. You can't bomb it, I guess, eh?
No, you can't. I mean, all the GPS in the world is no good if you can't at least point in the right direction. Uh-oh. Alert. The P word. The P word that Trump has talked about that we can't say. We're going to have to. No, we can't. We can't be mainstream media.
You can show it.
No.
You can show it.
I can't. It's been so overdone.
So Trump walks into the studio. He reaches down and says, hey, if that's the closest I'm going to come by picking up that piece of paper, that's the closest I can get to grabbing some.
Trump, it is there for you to grab the pushy.
Oh.
The cards are in the correct order.
Pushy.
Can't make this stuff up. You've seen me shuffling. I'm not a magician. I am not Houdini.
So when Trump's had a little too much to drink, that's when he might get a little pushy.
He gets a little pushy.
Hey, can you help me get a little pushy? Okay.
Yes, he does. Praise. We talked about prayer earlier when we were talking about
Yeah.
payer.
Yeah.
We didn't get to mention too much of the single payer health care.
Yeah.
But let's just consider for a moment the idea of single payer health care, and health care is a right.
Which works pretty well in all the civilized countries in the world, which apparently does not yet include. Well, America was about the last country in the world to abolish slavery.
Yes.
So needless to say, we're probably going to be the last one in the world to have single-payer health care, where if you're sick, you go to your doctor, and you don't have an HMO in between you and your doctor navigating the way for you. You go to the doctor.
They help you.
They help you.
End of story. They help you. They don't worry about getting paid.
And yet they do get paid quite well without HMOs taking a slice of the action. In Great Britain, doctors get paid bonuses according to how healthy their patients are.
So what you're saying is doctors get a report card.
They do, and they get bonuses if they, for instance, can persuade patients to quit smoking or to eat better, which leads to longevity.
They can get bonuses by getting people to not smoke,
Yep.
and the big tobacco companies.
Well, they're not paying those bonuses.
But they're okay with this?
No. Are they okay?
Who holds them off? The people? The people power?
I guess that's got to be how it happens.
So over there, the big tobacco companies aren't preying
Yeah.
upon the people?
They're praying that they can prey on people.
So it's like CVS here, who has gotten rid of selling cigarettes in a
they have.
pharmacy,
Yes, they have.
which really is always worth a kudos, because one would not expect that.
For that item, CVS, thank you very much. Good job.
Speaking of drugstores,
Oh, okay.
so one might argue that the reason we have been in war in Afghanistan is because of the poppies.
And who wouldn't like a fuzzy little poppy? Oh, that's puppy.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
okay, yeah,
Scritch
okay.
it on the head. And,
Yeah.
and speaking of, because I had to at least have one childish moment in here. It happens when you have a 3-month-old. And
Yeah.
5-letter P word,
Poops.
which I think, frankly, really is more about that. Because this entire election season, one could argue at this juncture,
Well, Rick Perry coined that.
oops,
Oops.
oops, can we vote again?
You know, in 2012,
Oh.
when Rick Perry, they asked him what were the 3 departments, federal departments, that he would eliminate if he became president, and he said there's the Department of Energy, there's Health and Human Services, and there's oops, he couldn't name the third.
Well, it would have led to good satire with the, vote early, vote often crowd.
Yeah.
You could sing, oops, I voted again. Brittany, where are you? We have a parody that we need your help with for next election cycle.
Call out Al that does parodies.
Oh, Weird Al.
Weird Al Yankovic.
Weird Al and Britney Spears, we need you on set ASAP. Pronto, 6 letters. Bummer. But that would be the prize.
That would take the prize.
That would take the prize. Is being president of the United States a prize? Is it about pride? Is it about paying the piper?
Being a piper.
Is it about doing nothing but eating pinto beans? Or is it a way to take care of the penal colony that this country has become?
Well, Trump wants more black people in prison, apparently, and that's because they're the troublemakers, apparently. He wants them in the pen.
Ooh.
And the pen is what he has in store for them. And when I say penis, I mean you can put is right after word, pen, and the pen is what is on Trump's mind.
It very much is. And I would say that in terms of the penal colony, it was Bill Clinton back in the 90s who led to the large increase in incarceration due to signing a bill that led to private prisons.
Maybe he confused penal
Oh.
with the pen is mightier than the sword.
Is that?
And the pen would slip out of his hand and go onto the desk, and thankfully he had an assistant down there to bring the pen back up into his hand.
This goes to show you that presidents should use pencils and not pens. Because then they can't control the press.
Press.
We're the press here. We're alternative press. We talk about things you're not going to see on that station over there, that station over there. You know, that would have been like 30 years ago where you turn the dial and it goes somewhere else. When you're, whoa, oh, hello?
Got Wolf Blitzer on the line.
Wolf!
And he says he's going to give us a phrase that he coined, and I have to say it in exactly the same tone of voice as he uses. Breaking news!
Breaking news. And
it stays breaking news. And it stays breaking news for a couple days. 3 days. Until the next breaking news.
And we're all
Patsies.
the patsies who listen to it. We like our blood, it sells. We like our violence, it sells. We like our sex, it sells. We like our people talking about war, and we vote for them. Well, we don't vote for them, but people vote for them.
Yeah, they get enough votes to sneak in when they suppress the vote down to about 50% for presidential elections, and you get that many people choosing not to vote because they're disgusted with the choices. But they could always do one or two things. They could always find a third-party candidate to vote for, a third-party candidate to vote for, or they could work together, and we're going to talk about this after the election a little further, like forever, about finding a fusion party between somewhat disparate parties. There's the word party coming up. So after the Democratic Party has their party and the Republican Party has their party, we're going to find and put together ourselves a real party that's based on the PACs or the facts, and they'd be willing to sign PACs with other countries to prevent war and provide us with a little bit sense of peace.
Party with our peeps.
A party with our peeps.
So that we can make sure all the planks we want are in.
Planks that will be followed through on.
No planes, no pulps. Although I do want to say that WikiLeaks email that came out where Bernie was doing well and they were talking about Bernie needing to be ground into a pulp, we're not going to forget that, DNC. Not at all. Pence is a 5-letter P word.
Hey!
Feed the birds tuppence a bag. I don't know how that has to do with anything.
So were the vice presidential and the presidential candidate for the Republicans, were they tuppence? Were they both pences?
They were both pences. Pensives?
Pence.
They Pence and Penny. They led to a panic.
Amongst their followers.
Yes.
And I believe we probably have, if you listen really carefully, you probably hear the riots going on outside right now because that's what Trump predicted.
That there would be riots, but we prefer poems. Poems over riots. It's like food, not bombs. Pound?
Pound?
Do we have anything for our election about pound? All I can think of is Brexit and European. All right, get rid of that one. Oh, these things fly. Duck.
Brexit.
It's like Odd Job and Goldfinger.
Brexit.
The price we pay.
The price we pay.
For paper.
And Connecticut, it's well noted, Connecticut, unlike a lot of states, does have a paper ballot. And after the election, there's a randomly selected group of elections which are recounted by hand in order to show that what's on the tabulator coming in, with the numbers that come in on the tabulator are backed up by physical pieces of paper which show that the elections were correct.
Which is really, when you do that audit, it's a way of staying involved after the election, because it's not as if the election's done and we wait for another 3.5 years and then get involved again.
Yeah.
Go out, do an audit, make sure the ballots were counted properly. In fact, call for the fact that maybe we need more than 5% of places audited.
5% is a good random sample. I mean, it works for polls, and polls are accurate if they're done correctly. But park the name Luther Weeks in your mind, because Google Luther Weeks, Luther, Weeks, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and contact him and be a part of the recount. If not this time around, then the next election. Be a part, because it's boring and yet it's interesting to see the actual ballots being counted by actual people to confirm that votes were actually counted correctly. And Luther's been doing this for about 8 years now, and it's an amazingly important service to the voters of Connecticut, and every state should do it that way.
Very much. May I make a pitch?
You may.
So, my pitch is the word Pyrrhic. There's the talk, now there's a differently spelled Pyrrhic, which is a Pyrrhic victory.
With an H in there somewhere.
With an H in there somewhere,
yeah.
and another R.
Yep.
And it's too long to be a 5-letter P word.
PHYRRIC?
Yes,
Okay.
very much so.
Okay.
Sorry, it took me a moment there. I haven't been in a spelling bee in decades, centuries or something. But there's a Pyrrhic victory, and I don't like to think of Bernie as a Pyrrhic victory, because we wanted more, those of us who were Bernie supporters. But what's interesting is that the other version of Pyrrhic has to do with fire.
Yeah.
And has to do with burning. And I like to think that maybe, if not a Pyrrhic of the 7-letter word type, we've had, because it's brought so many people out to be involved, still canvassing, phone banking, right up until the very last minutes before the election the other night, that we have a 5-letter P Pyrrhic victory, one where folks are still burning to be involved. And for that, thank you, Bernie Sanders. And that's part of my pitch to get you on the show.
And just a quick review of all our words. This has been Progressive Soup. I'm David Stevenson, Mark Murash, co-hosts.
Perks! Ploys!
We're gonna
Watch us at your peril. If you don't, you're a poser.
We're gonna cut out.
I'm pleading with you. Watch
gonna-
the show. Spread it around. Take pride in Progressive Soup. Visit our web pages, Facebook and YouTube.
You catching this as I'm throwing them by?